So if it's not real, that means it's fake. So if we're automatically calling something artificial intelligence, that means it's not real intelligence, right? So I asked, what does artificial mean? Artificial means made by man or human. Oh, okay. Intelligence made by man. And we all know men are flawed. I'm sorry, I didn't even introduce myself. I just jumped right in. Hi, I'm Jasheena, Rev J. Shelton of Jasheena Shelton Enterprises, 4-time certified Faith in AI trainer, and this is Tech Talk Tuesday. So today we're talking about real ethics in artificial intelligence. Yeah, so I'm glad you tuned in. So when we talk about ethics, I love it because I feel that I have an ethical foundation, and then I try to build upon that, right? So let's talk about ethics in AI. I looked it up. I want to make sure I want to give you solid ground to stand on so that you have a good base for yourself. So when you share out stuff, you're sharing factual stuff based on what we know as of today, being June 9th, 2026, because on June 10th, something else could change. Tech is moving really fast. So, ethics in AI refers to the guidelines and practices that ensure artificial intelligence is used responsibly to benefit society without causing harm. Key considerations include fairness and bias, transparency and accountability, privacy, preventing misuse, and environmental impact. Those are the key factors, five of them, five key factors in ethics in artificial intelligence. Okay, great. So when we look at the environmental impact, because that's real big for a lot of us, when we talk about environmental impact, we don't know. I hear the numbers, I've seen the talking points, but the reality is we don't know. We don't know how far, how deep, how wide this will impact environment to days to come. Environment, meaning what's going on planet Earth, the ground, the air, the water, the natural resources. Because as of right now, we only have one planet that we live on. And I think it would be great if we decide to take care of that planet that is taking care of us. Oh, okay, great. So I asked my notebook LM, I said, why is there so much energy consumption with artificial intelligence? Because we can't get into the ethics if we're not, we're going to take it back. And this is the answer. AI consumes a massive amount of energy because of the intense computational power needed to operate these systems. This energy demand comes from two main phases. First, training the AI by feeding it vast amounts of data, and second, infer- inferencing, which is the computing power used every time the AI generates a response to your prompts. All of this processing happens in massive data centers that require huge amounts of electricity to run the computers to keep them cool. Oh, okay. So I don't know if you guys know, but I'm from the South, where some of the most beautifulest things come out my mouth, right? I am from the South. I'm from rural Virginia originally. Rural, country, farmland. I grew up between an elementary school and a cow pasture, across the street with some railroad tracks. We had a garden in our yard. We also had some fruit trees. Anywho, I said that to say I have a special, rural America has a very special place in my heart because I know the work, the ethics, the integrity, the intensity that has to be done for rural America to do the things that we do. And so when I hear news and headlines that say, "Oh, this data center is coming to the rural part. This data center." Oh, okay. So what's the environmental impact? What are we really doing? If we're talking about ethics and we're saying we're being ethical, we're going for transparency. Why is it when we look up ethics first? There are four other things, but then we get to the environmental impact. I really think that should lead, but hey, neither here nor there. But the environmental impact is something that people who are making these decisions might not be here to see because certain times a generation can make a certain choice that has long effects and implications that future generations are like, we didn't ask for this, but now here we are. So we're talking environmental impacts, we're talking about air, we're talking about the water, we're talking about the land, all those things, right? And so then after we see that the data center came and they gave money to that local county or town, hopefully. Then we also see that the data centers get tax breaks to come to these areas, but then they also provide jobs. But how long are the jobs lasting? Are we just talking construction jobs, or are we talking long term jobs? Okay. And then if we're talking environmental impact, let's look at what's going on. And sometimes the big headline news does not always show the behind the scene. And so you have to have foot soldiers who are willing to go in with their real journalism and do impact stories like what's really going on. And so then we hear stories like, hey, my once clean well water is now brown. And it just so happens that our newest neighbor is a data center. Hmm. Then you see pictures online of like zoos and farms and animals that data centers have popped up near. And then what's happening with the animals? They're responding differently because there's noise pollution, because there's light pollution, and then of course there's air pollution, right? And so the animals usually tell you stuff before the humans catch on because they sense things differently, but that's not what this tech talk is about, right? So then the animals are telling us in their own way, hey, something's going on. Okay, so then what's growing in the ground can only grow in a ground with the provided nutrients, and then the thing that's growing in the ground then gets kicked back to the community and consumed, and then once it's consumed by the community, it's not going to taste or it's not going to be organic anymore because now the soil is not organic. There are lasting impacts to these things, and we are I don't understand the race. Yes, I use AI. Yes, I think I use AI responsibly, but are we really considering the lasting impacts with this great big race that someone has decided that we're in? Why are we racing towards something that could be doom and destruction? Who races towards doom and destruction? Yellow lights flashing. What are they saying now? Oh, I heard the sirens, the saxophones. So there's sirens, there's saxophones, the animals are telling us, the environment's telling us, the water's turned brown. Then what? If we keep selling out our natural resources in the name of a check that's supposed to bring some sort of technological advancement that we may not see, or we may see, or it may have been displayed for us in, 80s and 90s sci-fi movies, action thrillers. What are we doing? Why would we unleash? Why would something that could benefit from governance? Why would there be an agenda not to have governance on these things? Other countries have governance on it. No one has died from governance of something that we don't know the lasting impacts or the generational impacts from. All for a check that you're not even going to be able to enjoy, and what you plant and what you water will grow. And I'm not talking about crops. I'm talking about the division. I'm talking about the lives and the balance. I'm talking about the health of your community. And if you put stuff in areas that affects people's health, mhm, that would mean that they would get sick and would need some sort of medical care or support. But yet you don't have the closest medical facility is 40 some miles away. Don't think we thought this all the way through. And I'm not knocking any municipality. I'm just saying, as a whole, as a society, we have not thought this all the way through. I encourage you to do your own research on ethics in AI and really look at the fairness and bias, because we definitely going to talk about that next week. Transparency and accountability. There isn't that much. Privacy where? 132 flock cameras. Everybody got a ring camera. What privacy do you have? Oh, okay. And preventing misuse. And you can bury your head in the sand and be like, I'm not going to use AI. I'm not going to use AI. Oh, AI needs to go away. It's not going anywhere. So let's find the most responsible way to use it. Let's figure out what governance can look like. Let's hold these people accountable who come into our communities with what they think is something real when we know it's artificial, built by human minds. Tech Talk Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in.